Everybody, let me tell you about my love for you. By an angel from above. So you quit with a lifetime guarantee. Once or twice, I am sure that you'll see. Without love, there's no reason to live. Without you, what will I do with the love I give? All my loving to you I'll be giving. And I promise I'll do as long as I'm living. I'm thinking of you and the things you do. I used to love you, now I'm living in it. Hey, you and the things you do. I used to love you, now I'm living in it. All the time, he makes me glad that I'm alive. Together, we will survive. What do you think of the sun out today? It's my baby. Oh, everything. Without love, there's no reason to live. Without you, oh, what will I do with the love I give? All the time, to you I'll be giving, and I promise I'd do as long as I'm living. I'm thinking of you and the things you do that makes me love you. Now I'm living in it. Hey, you and the things you do that makes me love you. Now I'm living in it. Hey, you and the things you do that makes me love you. Now I'm living in it. Oh, you and the things you do that makes me love you. Now I'm living in ecstasy. I'm in love again, and it feels so good. I'm thinking of you and the things you do that makes me love you. Now I'm living in ecstasy. Hey, you, hey, and the things you do that makes me love you. Now I'm living in ecstasy. Oh, you and the things you do that makes me love you. Now I'm living in ecstasy. Hey, you and the things you do that makes me love you. Now I'm living in ecstasy. You and the things you do that makes me love you. Now I'm living in ecstasy. Hey, you and the things you do that makes me love you. Now I'm living in ecstasy. Hey, you and the things you do that makes me love you. Now I'm living in ecstasy. Hey, you and the things you do that makes me love you. Now I'm living in ecstasy. Oh,
Welcome, welcome. Hey, Sarah. Oh,
Hello, hi.
see your smiling.
You look like you got a haircut. You did not get a haircut though, did you?
No.
Still long and beautiful.
So long and beautiful and unshowered. Hey, Kirsten. I talked to our friend Sharon today. Yeah, it was so good. I love her. So good.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Is it better?
Yes.
Okay. That works.
Works. Hey, Trav.
Trav.
How's it going?
Boo. I love that we're doing these long enough that like we'll show up as like old friends showing up.
Yeah.
Sarah. Kirsten, Trav, Cherry. Good to see you again. Pete.
Cherry, are you a
Turn
camper?
your camera on. You'll get a hello.
Cherry, are you a camper?
I no, as
No?
in
Why did you
no, I
name-
work,
She's
but I know a lot of campers.
You know a lot of campers. Just the
Jerry
super.
works with us. Jerry was at our events in Australia with us.
Oh, okay. I was like, it's a very familiar name. It's very top of mind. I saw Mikey's face for a brief moment.
Is that Mr. Ellis? There he is.
That
With a face
handsome
like that, what are
man.
you
That
hiding?
handsome man.
Let's not make him blush.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, we'll wait just a few more minutes before we get started. Hey, Pete and Nielsen, I know you. Good to see ya.
Damon Klotz with us. Bringing more of this out our way.
Anyone coming to the book club on Thursday?
What book is it? See?
What book is it?
There it is. Sarah's rocking.
Mine's like covered in like, I don't even
Travel
know.
dust.
Yeah.
It's really good. I like it a lot.
It really is, isn't it?
Mhm.
Oh,
I like how she, just kind of sets it up with the framework of the 10 things to perhaps let go of.
so good.
Oh, she
Such a
created
good
a
one.
hard to talk about.
Yeah. Awesome. Hey, Christy. I owe you a text message.
We just meet.
Good to be with you all.
Good to see you. All right. Let's see. All right. Well, I'm going to get us started then for the sake of time then here. I mean, I could keep listening to Sunroof though. It's a fabulous song. Okay. Well, welcome everyone to the Culture First Global Chapter event, Designing Culture First Gatherings with Priya Parker. Obviously, this was a podcast episode on the Culture First podcast, hosted by the one and only Damon Klotz with us today.
Oh, the build up.
It was the fake drum roll. That was it.
What are my sounds? It's been a while. I'm gonna try it out. We'll see if we can get some sounds here. Keep going.
Keep going. Are you still testing your audio?
No, I'm wondering if I can be like Damon Klotz. Does that work? Sounds like it worked.
The angelic voices.
Gonna
So
start giving me some sort of a complex.
Working.
So good. Okay. Well, here we are, everyone. Welcome to our gathering. Today we're hosted by myself, Jesse Jacob, the Senior Community Engagement Manager running the Culture First Chapters program. We have Damon Klotz here today, obviously the host of the Culture First podcast, but also co-facilitating with us today. And then we also have the one and only Culture Craig Foreman here, lead people scientist at Culture Amp, helping run the show with us today. So a quick background for anyone that may be new to our community. What is the Culture First community? We're a group of people around the world united in the shared belief that a better world of work is possible. Around here, we create inspiring experiences to amplify, educate, and connect other culture first activists. So that's what we're going to be here today to do, obviously. We have 74 global chapters now at this point. This is the big global chapter that all the individual chapters roll up into. And we have a few core principles that hold us all together. This is the glue that keeps us together. So our first principle being fostering belonging and acceptance. We really want to create a space where people can come and feel like they can be themselves and feel seen, heard, valued for just being who they are. Our second core principle is being willing to reflect and grow. So we know that to transform our organizations, that work starts with us as individuals. So being able to turn the mirror around, look at ourselves, do the work. For any Mandalorian fans, this is the way. The second core principle, or the third core principle, is to have the courage to be vulnerable. So this is the only principle that's been pulled over from Culture Amp, but this is, we believe that courage is at the heart of vulnerability. So in order for us to be willing to reflect and grow, we need to lean in and to lean into that vulnerability. And it also ends up building trust and psychological safety for us to be able to lead to these transformations we're looking for. Our fourth principle, putting learning into action. This one is really big. We wanted our community chapters to be a space where people could come and feel like they can learn something, but they do something about it. So you'll see at the very end, we will talk about like, what can you do to take action and what's one commitment you're willing to take action on. So this is really big for us. We don't want information to go in one ear and out the other. We want to transform ourselves and our organizations. And then the last one is connection inside, business outside. So this value essentially means that here in the space together, we want to connect as human beings and as individuals. And if that leads to us doing business outside of the context of this gathering, that's awesome. We want that to happen. So this is not another networking event. This is also not another space where Culture Amp people are going to sell you on Culture Amp tools. This is a safe space for us to just come and be ourselves and be humans, to do the work and learn about how we can co-create building a better world of work. The last slide here that I wanted to share is that we have some core components of every chapter event that we run, and I felt like this was applicable to share since we are talking about Priya Parker and how to design better gatherings and better meetings. So you'll see at every chapter event you attend, we follow this flow. So we had a welcome. We're going to shift into a little bit of a connection. We'll do some work. We'll talk about, here's that action piece, that putting learning into action again. And then we'll have some sort of intentional close. So just wanting to call this out here. If you use this framework for any of your meetings or future events or gatherings, I'm guarantee it'll be a great meeting if you follow this framework. So great. We'll get into the purpose of the gathering. We'll have some time to connect. We'll have some time to reflect on the podcast. We'll go over Priya Parker's rules of gathering. I'm just saying Priya's rules as if we're on a first name basis. We'll do a little meeting makeover session, and then we'll have some closing remarks. So the purpose of today's gathering is to bring together fellow Culture First community members with the intention to connect and learn as a group about how to have intentional and well-designed gatherings to improve the places we work. So we believe the better we meet, the better we work. That is our way to transition here into our intentional connection. So if you don't mind, scan this QR code on your phone or go ahead and open another web browser and go to slido.com and you can enter in this code here. And I can also share the link. If anyone doesn't have it, I'll leave this up here for just a minute. I will grab that link too, if that's easier.
127.
It is 127-511-48. I'll get the link too that you can have in the chat as well. Great. There's the link to the Slido. All right. The first question I have for you, so I want you all to think about, so obviously we're here to talk about gatherings, and think about like a maybe a poor meeting experience you've all had in the past. We've all been there. We've all attended a shitty meeting. I'm just going to say it. Shitty meetings are happening. It's running rampant. And I want you to just kind of have a moment to reflect on that not so great meeting. What do you think, if you could distill it down into that core issue, what made it so problematic? So again, if you're in the chat, there's a link to the Slido in there as well. No clear purpose or outcome. Yeah. Huge one. Priya Parker's really big on that. No agenda. I know. Where are we going with this thing? No real purpose or resolve at the end. Ooh, yes.
They suck.
There's another there. Look at these. No introductions. Yes. No clear pop. Someone had, oh, I love this. Someone already has an acronym. Purpose, outcomes, process. That's good. Can't wait to geek out with that person later. Boring purposelessness. 20% of the room doing 80% of talking. Ooh, no one said what they really felt. Clearly, we lacked psychological safety in that meeting.
Been one of those meetings.
We've been there. Awesome. So it seems we're already seeing a lot of overarching themes here. No clear structure. People aren't we're not including everyone. There's not a clear purpose.
Information
Fantastic.
sharing been happening on Slack. Exactly. Like, did it need to even be?
Yeah. People having side conversations and not attentive. Yeah. You're having the meeting after the meeting is what I like to call that. Awesome. Okay. Now I want to shift into maybe some of the better meetings or events or gatherings that you've been a part of. So just kind of take a moment, reflect on, kind of find that example in your mind. And then what elements made that meeting or gathering or event so great? If you could distill it down into a short sentence or less. Clear structure. Yes. The vibe. Ooh, I like clarity of task ownership. Yeah, like who's doing what? Role clarity. That's, yeah. Fun, purposeful, good people. Yeah, facilitation, a magical art form that is, it's so funny, right? We don't realize that a meeting went well because we just assume that that's like how they should all be, right? It's like using a product, and then when the product user experience is janky, you then notice it, right? But you don't notice it when it's seamless. It's underappreciated. Got to the heart of the issues, making space for everyone to contribute, clear purpose, structure, actions, clarity. Fantastic. I'll have just like another couple seconds or let other people chime in here. Finishes in time. That one's a rare one these days. Awesome. Okay. So today, obviously, we're going to rethink some of the gatherings that we are maybe currently having or that we've had in the past and how we can make them better with some of the elements that we've learned through Priya Parker's book, or specifically through, if you haven't read her book, The Art of Gathering, and have listened to the Culture First podcast with Damon, we're going to talk about that. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Damon to just we're going to have a moment to just reflect and geek out on the podcast together.
Awesome. Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, this is actually the first time we're doing a little listeners club as opposed to a book club. For anyone who's ever hosted a podcast or been on one, a lot of it is actually just me staring at this microphone, talking to myself. It's scripting things myself. It's writing questions myself. And then it's reading a book by myself, and then eventually you have to speak to someone. So a lot of it is in isolation. So, I think it was just kind of like an idea. We were like, maybe we should just invite some people into a room and see how did the content land. So yeah, long time coming. We've had 30 plus episodes of the podcast before we've finally done this. So thank you for being all of our first adopters. Maybe just from like a show of hands, whether you can do that physically or whether you can do that virtually. How many people have listened to the Priya Parker episode? Just so I can get, okay, that's good. Most people, and again, we didn't assume that you listened. I also assume no one outside of my family actually listens to the show. So it's always nice to get actual people who go, yes, I have listened. And I actually have a family member on the call, so there is actually someone who has listened. So shout out to my dad who is here. So it is always nice to have people who listen outside of my family.
Hey, Damon, Dad in the house. I have to say,
Yeah.
hey, Paul, nice to meet
Hi
you.
there.
Nice to see you.
Awesome. Yeah, so basically we're going to use this as a bit of a chance just to have a bit of a reflection on the show. I've got some reflection notes, but I would love to maybe just kind of ask some people if you feel able to come off mute and just share like what landed in the episode. Was there an aha moment? Was there something that you were like, wow, I hadn't thought about that this way? Like whatever, and maybe just keep it to a couple of sentences. I'll do something physically with my hands if I feel like that you're taking up too much space, and if you're getting too passionate about it. So do we have anyone who needs to be voluntold, or do we have a volunteer? Yep.
I'll go.
Eileen, is it?
Yes. We're going back to our office at the end of October, so I'm putting together a welcome back guide. Recognize that we've hired people in the last 2.5 years who haven't been in the office, and there was something that Priya said that we're really not going back. We've learned so much over the last 2.5 years. It's a very different world, and I immediately went back to my my welcome back brochure, and I changed the name of it. I just said welcome to the new workspace or whatever I called it. So that was a good aha moment.
Forward.
Amazing.
I can share. I just liked the questions that she suggested at the end for like, what did you miss? When we're talking about going back to, a hybrid situation, what were the things that you really missed when we were totally remote? I think that's just a really great way to distill down, like, what are the really important components of gathering?
Yep. Those two, I think, the first one, Eileen, like the power of language is just so important. Like because I'm this like hybrid HR person who's got like a marketing brain as well. I think so much about like the words matter. So like what you're saying sends a signal back to your employees, and I think Priya does a really good job of that. And then Sarah, thank you, for joining that, for sharing that as well. I see we have Emma's off mute, and then we'll go to Pete. So I will bounce around. Emma.
Yeah, I wanted to agree with you both. I really loved what she said around just thinking about the questions that you're asking, whether they're the right ones or the wrong ones, but also what she said about don't assume that the purpose is obvious. Everybody, don't assume that everybody knows what the purpose is. So making sure that that's really clear, and that you have a purpose to begin with. That was something I took away.
Awesome. Yep. That's definitely a big one. Pete?
Yeah, well, we heard about the idea of like digital equity with kind of hybrid meetings, and that if there were people that couldn't be in person, then we should all be on our screens. And then, I think you made this point that on the podcast that maybe we aren't valuing the time that the people have spent to get into the office that do have that in-person connection. And so it made me rethink that norm that we've gone to.
Yeah, that's a big one. I remember pre-pandemic 2018, I was on a team at Culturamp where everyone was in Australia and I was in the US, and we used to do these things called sort of remote first meetings, where even though 90% of the team was in the office, they'd all jump on Zoom, so that I felt like we all had the same sort of digital space in that meeting. And I think it worked well then, but I think what we've now need to consider is the fact that like commuting does take time. Like you are choosing to go in, you are choosing to go be there in person. We experienced this recently. We had a bunch of the Culture Amp team in Melbourne for our Culture First events down there. And then we had like 1 or 2 people on Zoom, and we were like, oh, like it's a really different experience for those who are here versus not. So then we tried to make that decision. If we can get everyone in the room, then it's going to be a very different gathering than if it's going to be hybrid. So I think it's just about knowing up front, setting those expectations, and making sure that everyone sort of knows what to expect. All right. Paul, I see you've got your hand up.
Morning, all. Morning, son. No, all jokes aside. I'm going to do a little plug here for my son. The things that resonated so strongly with me is to use Damon's phrase, why are we here? Why are we here? And then Priya spoke about not making the assumption on what the purpose of the meeting is. It's not always that obvious. I'm just coming back from a 10-year health break, and I'm now sitting on 3 boards and a number of community groups. And it's amazing when I ask that particular question, how it changes the conversation, how it changes the culture, if you like, inside the meeting, because there's been this staged environment that we just go through the motions. So challenging people to actually rethink, why are we actually taking time out of our days, out of our personal lives, to spend time, especially with most of the boards I'm on, they're all pro bono times. So that was quite strong for me, is actually making that statement, why are we here?
Yep. That one, I think the first time I said that one out loud was actually at a Culture First event in the Blue Mountains when we were gathering senior HR leaders together. And it was basically, and I think Priya and I talked about these like onion layer questions where you like, the more you ask it, the closer you get to like the deepest need. And, the little play on words I was trying to do was like, why are we here? Which is like, why did you come to the event? But then it was, why are we here? Like, why did we choose this physical location? What land are we meeting on? How is this different because of the land that we're on versus where we could be somewhere else? And the more you ask it, the more you get to someone's deepest purpose and need. And even putting together this event, chatting with Jesse last night, was like, let's go one layer deeper on the purpose, one layer deeper. Like, can we get to like the core need of this group? So, yes, love that. All right. I will go to someone outside of Culture Amp. Craig, I'm not ignoring you, but Tawny, I see you've got your hand up.
On.
Hi, yeah, thanks. I would just say overall, and everyone here was just echoing it, this is hard work. And for leaders, I'm an executive coach and I coach leaders, and it's just a reminder of how important it is for leaders to be intentional around designing their meetings, every single meeting, and they're in so many every day, all week, that this takes a lot of effort. And it's important, right? So just like acknowledging that these leaders have a lot on their mind, a lot going on. And so designing meetings might seem like a really insignificant thing to them because they're so focused on the content, but it's just important and takes so much intention and effort.
Yeah, and I think this is where we need to kind of blow up the kind of idea that, the most senior person in the meeting has to be the person who's always running the meeting and organizing the meeting and thinking about it. Usually the most senior person in the room has the least amount of time to be thinking about that. And they're gathering these people, sometimes 8+ people every hour for a week, with really a lack of intention. And it's not that they don't care, it's that they just don't have that headspace to do that right now. So one thing that I found really valuable early on in my career, and my bias was I worked in learning and development and training, and I was a train facilitator for several years, so I enjoyed it. But like, I offered to run meetings that like weren't mine to run, but I was like, I'll partner with you, I'll co-create, let's like, I want to make sure this is a good use of our time, let you be a participant and let me be the host. Now that is something that many teams could do if they were willing to kind of reverse this idea that the most senior person in the room needs to be the person who's actually responsible for the entire gathering. So awesome. Craig?
Yeah, well, what you just said I think is important, and we just went through an experience where I think it's being intentional about, is it a power play or is it the right play? What you talked about, that if the leader's always hosting, I know we recently went through something where we pulled somebody in to facilitate for us that we probably could have gotten to. I mean, there was definitely expertise, but the fact that the team got freed up to do the work and somebody else got to take the ownership of the, and like when you just said what you said, it makes me think about how many managers or leaders, if maybe letting it move around gives them more of an opportunity to be in there in the discussion and not feeling the weight of owning the event. It takes certain types of energy. So I appreciated that. There's two things that came to mind for me, Damon. The first was, I just want to call out how much I enjoyed at the end. I mean, there were two shows that had stood out for me that I thought a lot about, probably more one than other, Ted Lasso. And I think it was a brilliant show, but I mean, I think there were a lot of nods to organizational effectiveness in that show. And then I do like Succession, and you all, the way you tied that in, I found that to be interesting, and using other things to help us highlight and see that. But the one thing I'll say that I know you all hit on, but I've been a fan of Priya's for quite some time. She's definitely been influenced a lot of the things that I've done here at Culture Amp. It's such a simple thing, but I find it so often gets overlooked, and that is the beginning, the middle, and the end. And so many of our events, at conferences I go to, at team events, we run out of time, and there's no intentionality to the end. And I think I've often said that, I play music, and if I played a chord progression, for any of you, you don't have to know anything about music, and I end it early, it's unresolved. It's unfinished. And I feel like the same energy happens in meetings, and we've gotten used to it. But this idea of complete your meeting, that's probably the last time that group of people in that headspace will be together. Let it be, complete for next time. So, I mean, I think it's been something big that's been in our community, always trying to close out our meetings. And she talks a lot about that, and I really appreciate it because it seems simple, but often overlooked, like ending a meeting appropriately.
Yeah. So many meetings fizzle out as opposed to go out with a bang. And there's we spend a lot of, I think one of the most common words I use on the show is this idea of a container. I'm obsessed with this idea of like creating this, and Priya even talks about creating this like false world for this thing to exist in. Like, what are the parameters of this world? What needs to be true? How do you open it up? How do you close it? Apologies. I'm still suffering from some COVID symptoms, so I will try not cough too much. The Succession Ted Lasso part nearly went so well that it derailed the entire thing, because Priya went for like 25 minutes on that section, and I basically lost my entire close. So while I was doing the interview, I had to like completely change my close. And when you're talking, again, it was one of the most stressful and also enjoyable interviews, because when you're like, it's the same thing, we're running an event right now on gathering, so there's a lot of pressure on this being a good gathering. And when you're interviewing someone about gathering, also a lot of pressure to actually nail the gathering right. But she said something really beautiful that, like, she called the question that I asked like a beautiful invitation. And like, I care so much about like question design, and she's like, what a beautiful invitation. Like, that's how that question landed for her. And because she'd never been asked it, but I think it also signaled that, for me to ask that question, I went through about like 6 months of her Twitter posts and saw that once in reply to someone else, she mentioned the show Ted Lasso, and she mentioned the show Succession. And like, that was enough for me to like say, okay, I think there's something I could do here, that she's got some level of understanding that we could frame a section here. And I think it makes some of the information more digestible. Like, she, especially with a lot of the people I interview, we are recording, I won't name shame them too much, but some of the more famous people will basically only give me everything that they've already said. They are so well trained at being articulate that it's going to be very hard for me to get something that's not a brand new idea out of them. And I think that was something that we should also be thinking about for our meetings. Like, how many of our meetings are so to the script, so to the point that we know every like minute 40, Jane's going to say this. She just does it every week. And minute 50, like, someone who hasn't been listening will come in at the end with a curveball, and then we'll be derailed. Like, we get into this idea that like these meetings exist because they've always existed this way. So part of that question was also like, can we do something different here? Can we have a different conversation that's not just talking about like every aspect of gathering? And I was lucky that Priya's done enough podcast episodes that I've literally seen every question she's been asked before, so I know what's a boring question to her. And I think we can bring some of that creativity into our meetings as well. I see another hand up. Paul, is your hand raised again? It is. Okay. All right. Double dipping.
I know. I was just going to extend on what Craig was saying. It's something that I have always incorporated in my previous 30 years in the corporate world, but also in personal relationships, be that friends, family, but also in my current roles where I do a lot of advocating and mentoring for people with disabilities like myself, is that You've got the beginning, the middle, and the end. It's the sandwich approach. You start with something good, you go to the meat, which is going to be the difficult conversation, and then you end with something positive again. So that way it keeps you on track in terms of making sure that you encompass everything that you want to achieve and that they want to achieve from what they've said from the outset. But you're also leaving the event, you're leaving the gathering, you're leaving that situation with everyone with a positive frame mind, with a way forward as to what they're going to do, where they're going to do, but also walking away going, that was a worthwhile experience, and therefore it will encourage them to come back. So
Yeah,
the sandwich approach.
Knowing what feeling you want to end on is really important. Like if you end on something super stressful, then like the entire memory of that meeting will be like something that was stressful, versus ending on gratitude or ending on thanks or ending on some sort of a team connection. So yeah, love that. Jesse, is this you telling me that I've been rambling for too long and we need to move to the next section?
No. I like genuinely have things to add that I that I enjoyed from the episode. I had that something she said that stood out to me was like caring, like a sense of caring for your team. Something to the effect of like, care for the team is gathering better and less. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting that that's a form of caring for other people that like stood out for me. And then something else she talks about, like what Tani was saying around like, yeah, it's so hard for executives to be like rethinking their meetings and things like that. It's so much effort. And I think she talks a lot about how gathering is an art of practice. And like, I really like that. It's like, yeah, it's a practice, it's a habit. It's not just like something you like flip the switch on and you're like, we have better gatherings. It's like, yeah, you have to like work at it. It's like going to the gym. You have to keep doing it over and over and over again. And even just like, then eventually you'll get into the mental process of being like, oh, what is the purpose of this gathering? Like, what do we need to answer? What is the biggest need? Why are we doing this? So those are two things that I want to throw in there. Thank you.
I'm going to do a bit of a voluntold thing, and then also, Jesse, if we do need to transition, please do let me know, because I feel like we're all having some nice sort of group gathering therapy here. Cherry, I would love to know, like, as someone who works at a more corporate environment, something where your meetings, you know, like I'm sure some people are listening to this, it's like, oh, all my meetings are soft and fluffy and Silicon Valley fun, and you're sitting there talking about like, you know, real things, digging up earth, like you're dealing with technical engineers, you're dealing with really, really smart people who are probably like think the art of gathering is like the most woo-woo book title they've ever heard of. Like, how do these concepts land for you, and how do you kind of see some of this being useful at an organization like yours?
Oh, great question, Damon. I think we have some really great gatherings and some really awful, you know, I want to stab pen in my eye kind of gatherings as well. You know, I'll talk about the positive one where we do have some really great gatherings is we run particularly in Asia, a D&I working group, and that's run really well. You know, I have to say my team does a great job at setting the agenda, sending it out, getting closing, opening. And so it's run really well, and there's a really great vibe to it. And, you know, we sometimes have about 20 to 30 people on the call. So it's all virtual as well. So they run their meetings really, really well, particularly our larger gatherings. But in terms of meetings, we have, I guess, meeting overload, and often they run over time, and often because it's, you know, the most senior leader throws in a curveball at the end. So I'm trying to work with, you know, my senior leaders, getting them to think more about, do we actually need to meet? I think, you know, usually when there's a problem, the first thing that comes to mind for all the leaders is, you know, we need to have a meeting. Let's discuss it. And it's usually aimless discussion without a clear purpose or intention and outcomes and so on. So I think these concepts are fantastic. And I think what I'm trying to do with some of our senior leaders is getting them to think more about, you know, what is the purpose of their meeting? How do they lead the meeting? And sometimes do they need to lead the meeting? I think to Jesse's point earlier, so I think it can work in a large organization. You know, there are some challenges because sometimes we are operating into, you know, remote jungles in Indonesia where, you bandwidth isn't great, and people can't often turn on their videos. But that said, I think it can still work really well. But yes, it's work in progress at TEAS.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Especially, like, I think sometimes I always try to just remind myself that, like, I need to hold space for many different types of leaders and organizations on this show, and it's not just brand new companies. Sometimes we've got episodes coming out this week with Wilson Sporting Goods. They've been around for 100+ years, incredibly well-known brand, but not too much is known about the company and the culture behind it. Like, always trying to center that, like, there's many different types of versions of work that we're all trying to experience, and to make sure that these concepts land. We have about 172 seconds left on this, according to my timer. Does anyone have any burning things that they want to share with the group that hasn't been shared? Mikey, all right.
Yeah, I'll just keep this really quick. I just popped a comment in the chat there. I'm finding that there's just such a need to educate and help people understand why this is important. I think the framework that Priya provides and some of what's been shared in this conversation is so helpful. And whilst I've tried to implement that at times, if I'm not doing it, then it doesn't happen in the meetings that I'm a part of at work. And so, I just literally sent a Slack message to a colleague this morning. So let's just use our POA, purpose, outcomes, actions framework that we've implemented for this meeting coming up. And it's like, oh no, I think let's say that for another meeting. It's like, no, it's actually for every meeting, for every gathering, everything we do needs that structure. And so it's just a bit of a reality check for me to go, well, we have to help our colleagues understand why this is important. We've got great tools and structure and resources. Just helping them understand why is what I'm noticing is really important right now.
Love that. Yep. It's why there's 10 billion books written on behavioral change, because it's so hard to get people to realize that this is something, like, I think so much of the people and culture leadership role these days is around communicating that effective vision, but also, like, helping others do the work and showcasing that, like, this is not supposed to be something that only happens when it's the people and culture team running it, that everyone can be, meeting better and being more effective. And, I think the term that stood out the most for me that we'll probably wrap this section on is this idea of being, using generous authority as a host, and, like, giving everyone that chance to be, generous with their authority. Like, when you are more descriptive about why we're gathering and how, everyone benefits. And that person's like, I don't have time to, like, do the POA for this meeting. I'm like, well, but you're going to spend an hour in that meeting wasting other people's time if you don't. So, like, what is more important, spending a little bit of time to get it right, or having everyone sit there and go, oh, that was a waste of my time? Like, no one wants to feel that after a meeting. So it's around, like, saying that this is an art form, this is important. We've been gathering as a society for millions of years. The whole reason we exist is because, we gather in communities, we come together, we learn from each other, and we grow. And yes, we do it in the workplace where we get paid, but we've been doing this as cultures for a long time. So I absolutely love this episode. I've loved all of the discussion with everyone. It's been such a fascinating chance to hear from everyone. So I just want to say thank you so much for sharing. And Jessie, I'll pass back to you.
Woo! Thank you all. I have started to gather some of these thoughts as quickly as possible into a slide deck that I'm going to share with you all. So, okay, I want to transition us here into, like, some of the more, like, tactical things if you didn't get a chance to listen to the episode. I did capture these as best as I could, and I will share right now a link to this so you all can view this, and you'll want this deck for later with an exercise we're going to do. But anyway, so here are a couple of the things I captured. Just a fun little image to surprise Damon, just to be silly and cheeky, but a little fun photo from Culture First Global.
I snapped that photo just because it was so perfect. I know the Wire story. When I saw that moment, that scene in time, I had to capture it. So it's so fun.
So good. Okay, so I really wanted to just spend a few moments on this section here. So Priya Parker has some rules to the new rules of gathering. I've left a link in this deck as well if you would like to be able to access the full. She has like a full PDF version that's like 20 pages, and it goes really in depth into each of these rules. But I wanted to spend a few moments going over this before we get into our meeting makeover session. So her new rules of gathering. First one, give your gathering. There's already a typo. I'm killing it. Give your gathering a purpose. I would say I'm professional AF is what I would like to say. So everything we've been talking about, explore your reason for bringing people together, identify the specific needs, have a unique and disputable purpose and why you are gathering rather than just like the category. Make purpose your bouncer. So almost like, I think this was like maybe a play on like maybe a bouncer getting into a club, like who's coming in, who's going out. So let your purpose guide your approach to your guest list. So will your party thrive from generous exclusion or over inclusion? So especially interesting in this world of like DE&I, of like being inclusive, but how do we balance being inclusive with like having the right people in the room? Because then that requires some form of exclusivity. So kind of getting to think about that a little bit. I saw a tweet the other day that was like, if someone in your at your wedding party has to say, well, for those of you that don't know, then those people should not be invited to your wedding. I thought that was pretty funny. So rule number 3, design your invitation to persuade. So a lot of times when we are creating our invitations and inviting people, they're heavily logistics based. And her whole thing is like, how can you use storytelling to draw your guests into your gathering? So getting them rallied around something that they're excited about. Rule number 4, ditch etiquette for rules. So identify a pop-up rule to help your guests be more present or avoid unhelpful group tendencies that can distract from purpose. So she gives a lot of times when she's doing interviews, she gives an example of these moms had a gathering that was the worn out mom's hootenanny. And their rule for the gathering was that you, as a worn out mom, you cannot talk about your kids. And if you do talk about your kids, you must take a shot. And so it's like thinking about this idea of like these restrictions are more like creative boundaries to have a better, unique experience for your guests. And then the last one we've obviously been talking about quite a bit is closing with intention. What's one thing you can do to close this party and make it more memorable? Kind of what Paul was talking about, like what's the feeling you want guests to have when they're leaving? So being more thoughtful about that. So there's a link here if you would like to go get the full PDF version of this. I'll show you. This is basically what it looks like for those of you that would like to get into it. So it's amazing. There's like even little exercises in here as well to help kind of guide you through each individual phase of these rules. So can't recommend that enough. Okay, with that, I'm going to hand it over to Culture Craig, and we're going to do a meeting makeover together as a collective. So Craig,
that meeting.
I'll stop sharing, but then I'll come back to this once we want to collaborate together.
All right.
Off to you.
Yeah, in the spirit of courage to be vulnerable, we're going to try something here. We are going to end up, breaking out and doing a little bit of work together, but we thought it'd be fun to maybe do it live, and haven't done this before. But I think it'd be fun and something we want to try. So the first thing is, I think in the invite it mentioned, come with an idea or something you're working on. So I want to know first, is there someone that's thinking about a meeting? Are they planning some sort of meeting, event, something coming up? And would that person be willing to volunteer to come on up, and we can almost do a meeting makeover live and have a little bit of like a meeting kind of coaching session around it before we break out into groups. So when I see all those people with your cameras off too, you are allowed to turn your camera off, but any volunteers that have come prepared or are thinking about a meeting, or maybe there's some meetings that haven't been going so well and you're feeling some courage to help rethink it or revamp it, we'd love to hear from you.
Something we want to rework or try anew. A gathering you would like to rework or try anew. Anyone?
Tawny, you have
I have plenty. I have many. I can share many. There's like,
Here's what I want to do. Jesse, will
Yeah.
you pin me and Emma?
Yes.
Let's do this. So I think it might be more interesting. We can try it. We can pull some people up too along the way if we want to have a conversation. So let's do this. Playing with our technology. Also, look, when I facilitate virtually, I always try to create some movement. I think that's a great. So just talking about, like, I think the fact that we're pulling us. Did it do it?
Yeah, you're good. You're pinned.
Oh, I am. It's fine. I don't
Yeah.
see it online. Oh, okay.
You're not. You might have to change the. You might have to change your view, maybe.
Is everybody seeing just the two of us right now?
I don't think he's pinned.
no, I'm just
No.
seeing everyone.
Who owns this meeting? Jesse, is it you?
Yeah, I pinned her. Let me.
You might have pinned me for you. There's a way to pin as the moderator. You can pin for the audience, for everybody. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that. I have it pinned for myself.
Okay. Emma, we're still going to do this. So here's what we laid out. Give you about 2 minutes to just talk. Like, let us all hear what's going on. What are you thinking about? Oh, it's happening.
I'm gonna try and spotlight. Cassie had a good.
Spotlight. That's what it
Maybe
is.
that's the new, different one. Thank you, Cassie.
The new hip term for this.
There we go.
There we are. I like that.
Woo!
Right.
Yeah. Well, first, tell everybody just a little bit about, like, what's your name and where are you from, and maybe a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Emma. I'm from Melbourne, Australia. Recently joined the Culture First community, working in a people and culture coordinator role. So I'm quite new to the space, trying to have influence as much as possible and encourage my bosses to listen to all the stuff that I'm learning about to incorporate it into our work. We're only a team of 16, so we are pretty small. So learning from some of the bigger corporations is actually really cool to see how we can, how they can influence us as a small business. But we have one meeting at the moment, which we call Showcases, which is a fortnightly meeting. We have trialed it weekly. It's usually an hour at the end of the week, usually a Thursday or Friday, where we get together, and it's kind of a time where we can connect. Most of the time it's a virtual event, but it's kind of, I think it's lost a little bit of its purpose along the way. People are now opting out and wanting to work. Like, it's just, I think we just need to revamp it a bit. And I thought it would be a cool space to share here about, because I don't think Showcases is really the right name anymore. It's a bit of a disaster sometimes.
First of all, I just want to rewind after hearing your intro. Number one, really, especially in this role, really excited that you found this community. I mean, I think it's specifically designed for all levels, but this is big work, and no one person has the answers. The fact you found yourself here, I think, is going to be really supportive, especially in your role. The other thing you said was influence, which I think is really important when you're doing this work, is understanding where your influence is and isn't. I found if anything in the world, especially if something's moving a certain way, if it's resisted or pushed against, you'll get resistance back. So I think in our work, it's how to play with and manipulate and work with what's happening, versus I think sometimes in this work coming in really hard and we need to change this, we need to do that. So just leveraging and understanding the influence and how do you bring some of these things to life. So I'm really happy you're here. Okay, so there's this big meeting every week. You called it Spotlight, you said?
It's called Showcase.
Showcase, and it's fortnightly, so every other week right now. What's is this like a whole company meeting?
Yes, so everybody is invited. Some weeks I'm the one that facilitates it, so I organize it. I message. So the whole point of it is that it's not just me speaking every week. I want to try and hear from lots of different people. Sometimes it'll be on a project that's maybe just finished, or it could be a work in progress, because people ask questions about projects we're doing. And if you're not in that project, I'm in an internal role, so I have no idea what happens in the actual project. So I love to hear about the great work we're doing. We're a digital design agency, so we do a lot of website design, a lot of research to make a website better. for our customers, our clients. Last week, we wanted to showcase a project, but it kind of failed when half the people didn't show up, or we just have a lot of people away. And so we ended up opting and just playing really casual games, because sometimes we do that. Sometimes we want to just make it a bit more fun and casual. We might bring an original, game back that we played a couple of years ago, because people seem to love that as well. And other times, what else have we done? Sometimes people will showcase like what maybe a recent like an event they attended. So like I've attended that Culture First APAC event, and I'm like, well, it'd be awesome to bring that back and share with my fellow team what I do, what does a people and culture person actually do, and yeah, so that's something I'd love to do in the future. But making it obviously, work for them and make it relevant to them somehow is important too. Yeah, so we just do a bunch of random things, really.
One more kind of clarifying question just to tease it all out, and then we're going to go and we're going to kind of walk through some questions that each of the groups will walk through. And that is, and I kind of want to, we're going to come back to this idea of purpose, but you said it's lost its purpose. It's talk about like the current state of it. Like it almost like, there's a problem. You said that in your presentation. So I was just curious, like what do you make is going on, or what's missing? What's happening there?
I just feel like there's not as much engagement anymore. It's just kind of become a bit of this is what we do, but people just seem a bit drained, a bit like, I don't know, like I just think when people pull out, it's like, oh, how do I get people excited to want to come to these meetings and actually be like, hey, would you like to talk about this? Or shall we do a showcase on this? I'd love your help. But getting them to partner and to come on board and see it as a valuable thing. And also, like it's such a great opportunity to just, I guess I do, maybe I'm a bit selfish in that I'm like, oh, it's such a great learning opportunity for people to practice their skills in presentation, because we do a lot of presentations for clients, and we have people who I know in our team who are scared, and they find that really hard. So, how to just get people to embrace it.
Something and you want it for others and they're not. And the other thing I'll say, let me go to these questions, but the other thing I'll say is that, we work a lot with clients around survey and running large surveys. And one of the things we'll say sometimes is, we'll run a new survey, they're not participating. There's only 50%. And we're really big on saying, well, that's one of your indicators. That's a signal. And I think instead of as a facilitator, someone's trying to build a great event, they're sending you a signal. It's not as valuable, and they're voting that way. And instead of, I think it's hard when we run events, but then that's your first metric of like, let's start making it better to invite more people in. You'll start to see that in the numbers versus, I think, kind of forcing people there. Remember that force thing doesn't work. So I would invite you to say, okay, this is our starting point. Clearly they're telling us something that they're not showing up. And instead of taking it personally, be like, okay, we got to make it better. What do they want? There's listening and other ways we can approach it. So we're going to go to the questions though, that we're going to ask everybody to go through here. The first one is, let's start at the beginning. What's the purpose of the meeting, Emma?
So from my perspective, the purpose is to come together fortnightly and connect with one another so that, we can feel more like a team. It's a team building experience, regardless of what the actual agenda of the hour is for. It's to purely connect. But now that we've also brought in morning chats for 15 minutes just to start the day chatting to someone with a coffee. So that's just a very basic meeting, a very just like for people who want to connect. It's an optional one. It's not, it is company wide and offered to everyone. So then I feel like that's kind of drawing away from the showcase and what that purpose is as well. But yeah, so that is the purpose. And I feel like it's still a good purpose, but I do feel like it's quite weak.
What I heard was,
I don't agree with that.
What I heard was the purpose is every other week to come together to connect.
And meet. What is the deepest need though? Is the deepest need to connect, or is it something else?
So another bit of context for our company is we've gone to a remote first friendly or remote friendly, we're calling it, models. So people like there are teams that you'll see in the office maybe occasionally, and then there's people you'll never see. So the only time that we're seeing people all together is in the showcase meeting. So it's just a way to keep our company connected and a way to bring everyone together in a remote environment. And yeah, and the purpose is for that connection.
Can I offer something on this first question, something to think about? And that is, that purpose sounds a lot like the purpose the organization wants, but maybe it's not the purpose that your attendees want. And I think Priya talks about that. You can't, for you, they don't come together. We want them together. So one, I would say it sounds, and this is not a critique on you, I think in general, because we're brainstorming, working together here, would maybe be figure a way or go talk to people, engage, what do you think the purpose of this meeting should be? I mean, what if not say we don't want it? You still do it?
Yeah.
So I think there's that first piece is like, it sounds like the purpose is kind of an organizational purpose, but getting more in touch. And that's that thing like with communication with everybody, listening and saying, oh, okay. I imagine people probably see some value in coming together every other week. We'll probably say, but like, we want it to be about this, or we want to learn new things, so, and getting more in line and tune and working on that purpose statement around the meeting in general would probably be helpful.
Yeah.
The second question is who's it for? Is that the question? Who is it for? It sounds like we know that this is for the entire organization, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty clear. So this sounds like the first one's probably a big challenge, and getting, maybe that's, somewhere to focus in and say, you know what, we're going to explore this on purpose, but we know who it's for. It's for the entire organization. How might you design the best gathering? Okay, so these are getting deep. How might you design the best gathering for your purpose and your people? So I think what I'd say here is, number one, until we get number one down, is really tricky. But I think when you have number one, it helps question number three a lot better. You say, oh, what people want to do is come together, learn and connect. Now you can start taking the meeting and like starting to craft it for learning and connection, maybe using some of the things we've seen today. How do we engage them more? Do you use breakout sessions? There's things you can do virtually. I think when you get too many people together and they stare at a screen, they start to zone out. But if we remember like what I just did here with the two of us, like we're going to move back soon. And so there's movement, on the screen. If you watch TV, if you watch news, you'll notice how much things are moving. That's a little bit of a hack to keep people engaged. So I feel like putting a lot together here, but I think if you know the purpose, which is probably the biggest one to focus on now, then we come back to how do we craft a meeting around that purpose, and then lean on groups like this to say, like, now, can I talk to somebody about how to design an opening? I definitely say that welcome, connection, work, action, close is really strong.
Yeah, I loved that. I'm going to try and adopt it, I think, for meetings like that. I just feel like people thrive off structure as well, and just having a clear, like what we talked about, having that clear sense of purpose of like, this is why I'm here. But I think a problem that I also have, which is what I said earlier, is, assuming everybody understands the purpose, but actually I even just noted down here whether I'm like, do I do a showcase on actually gatherings and let's all learn together what makes a good gathering as a whole team, because we do have meetings, not just showcases, meetings that I'm like, does this meeting actually need to happen? Or, like I've already asked my bosses around some other meetings, it's like, how do you want me to share data and insights from our exit interviews and from other onboarding, surveys and things like that? Like, how do you want me to share that information with you, so that it's not just missed or lost, or and it actually is useful and impactful to them and how they run their business.
I just love that you're approaching it and reapproaching it. When you said something, it got me a little excited, and I thought, what if you took 30 minutes and maybe worked with one of us or found somebody of another meeting and saying, what I want to do for 30 minutes is do a group exercise to figure out what the purpose of this meeting is. How about that?
Yeah.
Like,
so meta.
To use
so meta.
What's that?
I said it's so meta.
I'm so meta. But,
I love it.
But I also think there's a power, and we with leaders and like using feedback, especially if they're there together. But even if you do a poll and you go back and say, here's what we heard, here's what we're going to try, it's that signal. You know, those that watch Ted Lasso, there's a scene where he just puts a suggestion box out at the beginning, and someone puts something in there silly about a shower head. You know, he's trying to fix a whole soccer team, and then the next scene you saw, he goes, "Wait, the shower, they heard me." And then you start to co-create. So it's a simple trick, but if you do it on the fly, it's even better if you feel comfortable with it. Now they are co-creating what they want versus the company telling them, you know, what to do. The last question is around an intentional close. Now I'm looking at time and I want to move on, and I think really great work was done here. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's the purpose of the meeting, and that's going to be the key to making this better.
Yeah.
Working with the team to co-create the purpose of the meeting, and then it doesn't have to be perfect. Just keep refining. When they see that's happening, they're going to feel engaged versus the company's just forcing me to be here. So, Emma,
yeah,
I appreciate you coming up and like letting us just do this on the fly.
Yeah,
I hope it was helpful.
Very, very helpful. I love learning from you all. It is so valuable to me. Yeah, 100% love it. I'm here for it.
Okay, can we all come off mute real fast and just give like Emma a round of applause for like thank you for going through that and having the courage to be vulnerable to like do a meeting makeover.
Yeah, so we're moving on time. I think we're doing okay. Do you want to hear can we give two people like 30 seconds just to reflect on that?
Yeah. Anyone want to share their takeaways?
Thoughts, just listening in
Any
on that?
thoughts?
I'm taking lots of notes.
I'm happy to add to it.
Yeah, Alan, please.
I think, I just want to echo, in terms of, surveying, right? This survey fatigue, right? So I always talk about how if you're surveying on a regular basis, there's got to be an outcome. So you have an input in the survey, then you got to have that feedback, then you come back and you're going to do another survey. For me, these recurring meetings are kind of the same way, right? So what is that output that comes in that really engages people to come back every 2 weeks? And I would almost say, so I agree with engaging the crowd to see what value they have. I would also look at cadence. Is 2 weeks too often? Maybe it's once a month. And then if it's, partially you're doing this to get everyone together in a remote kind of environment, does it become maybe even partially more social around drinks and food and things that people can socialize, and then they feel like there's that purpose. And then there's a sort of company learning that happens at the same time. Just a couple of thoughts.
Yeah, no, that's good.
I'm putting this here now. This is something we share a lot with our people we work with, and I've dealt with this head on and working with organizations and surveys, and they say, well, there's survey fatigue. And what we often say is it's not survey fatigue, it's lack of action fatigue. People will keep giving you information if they feel like it's causing some sort of change. So I think, and the same thing I think with the meetings, it's not meeting fatigue, it's crappy meeting fatigue. Like people love to meet when they feel connected, engaged, so, and I think we've seen that through the work we've done. So yeah, it's just, I think always pushing back on that easy out with things like, well, they don't like this, they don't like surveys, they don't like meetings versus like, they don't like bad meetings. I think people crave connecting in great meetings.
Craig, Damon, what do you think about pivoting here to just doing another one all together rather than doing group exercises and like breakout sessions? What do you think about that? Yeah? Okay. Craig?
Am I doing it again?
I don't, yeah, whatever. I'm happy to facilitate this one.
Do you want to do one, Jesse?
Sure. You've got it.
Something like you did from like just a small box.
Okay, great. So instead of going into breakout sessions to having you all do a meeting makeover together, let's just do the same thing. Does anyone else have another gathering meeting that they would like to rethink or rework? And then we can all go through that as a collective.
Can I share one I'm thinking of
please,
asking
Angie.
for? Okay, cool. Also, sorry I was late, everyone. I was trying to finish the podcast episode before I got here.
Next time you come, it's all right if you
guilty conscience. Okay. Yeah, so our team, we are a small social impact consulting firm. We are about 9 of us. And I would say 80% of the team is on the consulting team. So actually working with clients, delivering projects, et cetera, et cetera. Then the other 4 of us are more in sales, people roles. We have the CEO, and then we have like a independent contractor who's doing like marketing, branding stuff. I have noticed that we have a core team meeting every month, which is the one time that the whole team, everybody in the company comes together. We also have a daily stand-up for the consulting team, which 2 of us who do more of the internal company process, ops, admin things also attend. But then the rest of our ops work happens one-on-one between the CEO and the said person who's doing the role. So CEO will meet with the finance manager. CEO will meet with the branding person. CEO will meet with me, the people person. CEO will meet with his executive assistant every morning. I have felt like there's a gap in knowledge sometimes that happens, or like a lack of communication where those of us doing the ops work don't always know what other people are working on, and it's led to a lot of duplicate efforts. And so I want to pitch a stand-up maybe for the ops roles, but not sure if it should be weekly or daily, or also there's like complications there because some people who do the ops work are independent contractors and not full-time. So thinking through that.
What's keeping you from pitching it now?
I literally actually just had the idea today. So actually very grateful to get to work through it with all of you. That's the only thing. I probably will pitch it maybe within the next week if possible. I think my biggest hesitation is the boundary / lack of understanding in terms of whether independent contractors can or should be available for those types of meetings.
And Angie, question. Sorry, I'm taking notes here into this like Google Doc for all of us. So the existing stand-up meeting that's occurring, what's the deal with that? Is it, can you tell us more about like, what's the process for that? What is the purpose of that stand-up? Kind of what is the structure of it?
Yeah, that has actually been one of the best changes I think the company has made in the last 5 months. One of our consultants had experience doing stand-ups at other companies and came into ours seeing that people were rarely communicating with each other. There was lack of trust. No one knew what other people were working on. And so we launched it for the consulting team specifically. What this looks like is every day at a set time, all of the people who are consultants on the team, plus the CEO and his executive assistant, who tends to fill some of the admin roles for the consulting team, will meet. We've now just added a sales person to our team, and he is now attending those meetings. They're 15 minutes long. Every person who attends the meeting goes around and says what they worked on yesterday, what they're working on today, and if they have any blockers. And then at the end of the meeting, we elevate, does anyone have questions for the team or concerns that we should bring out into the open right now?
So it is an actual stand-up. Sometimes people use the word, we have a daily stand-up, and I'm like, that's not a stand-up. But it sounds like that's an actual stand-up by definition. So Craig, yeah, you had something.
Yeah, I just want to, I'm excited to get into this, and I think we can almost like hypothetically start to put this together, but I want to offer something. And look, Angie, I don't know your company. I don't know your CEO. But the first thing is I got to hit, and that is sometimes with authority and power, it's possible, and this is important to know if you're going to try to kind of restructure this. When people operate that way, talking to each people individually, it gives the person having the conversations a lot of collective power and keeps a lot of people not as in power position. Do you see what I'm saying? So creating silos sometimes, and it might be subconscious, it might not be at all, but I think it's something to evaluate. Is the CEO possibly doing that? Because that helps this person stay in a position of knowing everything while other people don't. If that's the case, when you go to present this, you might butt up against that. If there's some ulterior motive to why this person is choosing to have the meetings that way. I don't know, so I just want to bring that up. The second one is what I've found with somebody working with you in your position, trying to talk to like an executive, is if you go armed with some data, you're going to be in a better position. Hey, we did this, in the last survey or this thing that, 80% of the people here feel like information is not communicating very well. And it's, it's causing, whatever, going with some data that supports what you're saying and say, now I have a suggestion or an idea that I think we can make movement on that. You're going to have your best chance of success with a leader is if not just coming in where, particularly if there's some, even if it's subconscious, like this person's using it as a way to kind of like, it's the only way they know how to kind of keep and maintain control and power, that the data will cut through and go, oh, problem. Okay, well, oh, you see, versus like, I don't know, that's anecdotal, Angie. Not sure we're going to do that. Let's move on. So I would just suggest, is there any sort of data or any sort of information that you could go in with? And so when you make the case, you're like laying it out with some data, saying, here's what we've seen, here's what we think the impact might be. Here's an idea on how we can test out a different type of meeting. What do you think? I think you'll have the best chance of success. So those are just a couple thoughts. And I want to go into like what that meeting could look like, but those are some thoughts that I had as you were talking.
Something else I wanted to add to Craig, that you said is this idea of like testing the meeting. I feel like also that's a great way to be like, okay, well, like I used to do innovation consulting, and I would be like, let's go kill all the zombies. So the processes or the rules of the meetings that aren't providing enough value for the time, money, and energy we're spending on them. And so that's a great way to be like, cool, let's test it. And then if this is a zombie and we're wasting too much time and energy on it, then let's kill it. But anyway, we can come back to that. Okay, so we have a little more context. What do you think is if you had to sum up, what is the biggest need? I know I heard you say like there is a gap in the knowledge between the consultants and the ops team, but kind of elaborate a little bit more on what is kind of the deepest need you think for the team.
Yeah, I think the deepest need for the team is to be aligned on what the operational priorities are and how we're going to work together to achieve those.
Okay. And then I know you said earlier that the entire team meets once a month with everyone. What does that meeting look like and entail?
Yeah, so that one, as Emma was sharing, I was actually thinking about the way that I have recommended we restructure that since we started. And I was like, I think we even need to do some more changes from there. But when I first joined the company, we were only like 8 of us. So that meeting was literally, there was no planning that happened. Everyone just showed up and we went around and everyone shared what they had worked on last month, what they were working on this month. And we started that meeting with a Stoke activity, which was great. Like people get a little bit of an energizer. And then we ended that meeting with kudos. So shouting out people on the team who have done a really good job. Since I started, we've restructured that meeting to have a little bit more intention to it because the team is bigger and I started to notice people's eyes glazing over as everyone just listed what they worked on last month and what they were working on this month. So we got rid of the Stoke in the beginning. We now have a bio bingo activity, which is a chance for each person on the team. We rotate to give a presentation on who they are, what their background is. We then go into a core value story. So what is one thing that someone has noticed someone else do at the company in the last month that is reflective of one of our core values? We then go into updates from the CEO/senior leadership on what our quarterly objectives are and how we're progressing or not toward them. We then go into announcements and then we end still with our kudos. And they're about an hour, 15 minutes long now instead of an hour.
Okay. And then do you feel like there's maybe room for what your need is to get, if that monthly core meeting was to be reworked, do you feel like that would be a proper place for that? Or do you think that would need to happen more often to get what you need from an ops perspective?
I think one of my challenges personally, and maybe this is a me thing, not always getting responses asynchronously from certain people on the team. And I'm specifically thinking of one person who sometimes also doesn't attend the core team meetings. And I think it's because they're an independent contractor. And so again, there's that, I think, difference in what we can expect them to attend.
Okay. Okay.
So maybe, I mean, maybe to answer your question, maybe, I don't know. I'd have to.
Yeah. Okay, so who is it for and who is it not for? It sounds like it's for the ops team specifically. Is that right?
I don't think it's fair to say it sounds like you're not completely sure, because there's this question of should the contractors be there, should they not? So it sounds like that's something that is not, maybe that's something that to be teased out, because that in your conversation today has come up a couple times of like, I think they should be there, but maybe they shouldn't be there. So I think getting clear on who are these meetings for and not, if there's any uncertainty, because that might be getting in the way.
Yeah, and how do we like advance operational projects if some of the people doing ops work aren't there?
And maybe the case should be made they should be there. You know, you see what I'm saying? Then you go back to like, that's a great question you might propose to the CEO, be like, if we're trying to do X, if this is our purpose, but these people aren't here, are we running an effective meeting? You know?
All right. And then I don't know, this is going to be hard for us to carry on again. Like, how might you design the best gathering for your purpose and these specific individuals? So do you have any thoughts around that just initially about like how you would envision this going?
I liked your idea of like testing the meeting. So maybe requesting just one meeting with the people I think should be there and seeing what people think about. Because we don't even have an official ops team. We don't call ourselves that. We have, someone who's doing executive assistant stuff, me who's doing culture stuff, our finance manager who's doing payroll and finance, accounting, the CEO, and then an independent contractor whose current focus is branding and marketing. But we don't call ourselves the ops team.
Got it. Okay. And then, it's hard to answer the, like, how might you close session? Any like takeaway, anyone else? I see Paul has his hand raised. I want to spend like a couple more minutes on this. Paul, what's coming to mind for you?
Been in similar situations, and it's just an observation and probably a question as well to Angie, is that sometimes you congest the agenda items. There's too much on there, so maybe toning it down to just a smaller amount, but then allowing for wins to come out of that. Because what I'm not hearing is that there's any action coming from the discussion or from the agenda items there. So that can be why people then glaze out, why people don't attend, why people think, well, what's the point? We're just going through the motions here. So maybe fine tuning it down to a smaller number of items, really honing in on those, getting some big wins, getting some big ticks, which then enthuses people, gets them wanting to be more involved, to actually raise their hand. And then over time you can expand it out, or maybe having specialist ones, so that, well, you know, once a week you have your general meeting, but every fortnight you have a specialist one, which just hones in on those particular key aspects. Because the one thing for me, if I walk out of there and nothing's actually been documented, therefore nothing's actually going to occur, I'm not inclined to go back.
Thanks, Paul. That's super helpful. That is one of the thoughts I was having as Emma was sharing, of like, maybe there's too much and we need time to actually discuss what's being said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jesse, I feel like we're probably turning a corner here, but I do, look, that meeting outline that Jesse showed at the beginning, when we started the community and the chapters, we knew we were going to the world saying we're asking people to run events, right? Culture have been running a lot of events. So one of the questions was, look, great, but like, can we distill down what that means? And we built that over 3 years ago for the community. And I've worked with leaders since, and I think it's pretty wild that we built it for the community, but really it's a good structure. And I know it kind of Priya's in there, but I still hold by this, that every great meeting, if there's a welcome, meaning that we intentionally thought about how they came in, here you'll see us do music or just a couple of minutes people get there. If it's a 30-minute meeting, maybe it's 2 minutes. Connection. That could be a one-word check-in, but before we start the meeting, in some way, shape, or form, is there some human connection that takes place? This takes a lot of courage, especially in an environment where that hasn't been the case. So what's a lightweight approach to that? It can literally be a quick one-word check-in. It doesn't have to take long. You can do this in a 30-minute meeting. You can do it in an all-day meeting. The work, and I think it was what Paul too is talking about, what are we here to do? This could be a budget review. This could be, we're here to get vulnerable and talk about meetings, like whatever it might be. What are we here to do? Which I think is also part of that purpose piece. If you don't know that, there's a problem. We have this one, but I think it's important. The action, again, to what Paul spoke about, that's the piece of like, what's next? What's going to come from this? What are the deliverables? Or what are the next steps before, so some sort of like, what are we doing with this? What's the action? I think it's in most cases, and then the close. And like, this is that place that often gets missed, but holding even 2 minutes for a one-word checkout, for a reflection or a moment of gratitude, the kudos that you did. I propose to all of you, if you think about these and do a meeting and think you can check all 5 of these when it's over, I bet you people are going to say you're running better meetings. But it's tricky and it looks really easy on the surface, but like, how do we all craft business meetings like this around that framework? I think they hit kind of a fundamental architecture for great just experience design in general. And we've tested it so many times over, it seems to work. Nope, kids in the background, it's okay. So I just think it's a really good framework just to share at the end if anybody's thinking about a meeting. I know there's a rich topic.
I just want to like give kind of Angie like just like 30-second little like any closing thoughts or statements. I know we didn't have enough time to really dig in a little bit longer, but just kind of want to hear your closing remarks from going through this with you.
From me?
Yeah.
Or from anyone? Oh, yeah. Oh, well, thank you all for sharing your ideas. I really appreciate it. I think my biggest takeaway from today is going to be collect some data, try out a test meeting, and tread with caution in case it is about authority/power. My CEO, I have no idea, but Craig, that was a really valuable insight. So thank you.
So good. Well, can we all come off mute again and give Angie a round of applause? Thank you, Angie. Embodying the value of courage to be vulnerable. Appreciate you.
Without solving, Jesse, just wanted to, I was taking some quick little notes, Angie, of what you were sharing and also just around your company and kind of the like connecting to social. So this might be useful, it might be not, but I created a very quick like 4-item agenda that you might use for one of these meetings. It's basically, and I just made this up on the spot, but it's the care, share, feel, know. And I'll just drop it in the chat, but it's basically just like super actionable that you want people to kind of like be thinking about. It was like one thing we want you to know, which was like the operational priorities. One thing we want you to feel, which is how do you actually achieve those? So the how of the work. One thing that you'd like to share. So what fears and concerns do your team have? How do you create the psychological safety about that agenda? And then because of your work in the social kind of change space, one thing that needs our collective care. So connecting to the external environment, and that could be a great way to bring the contractors in because they're actually connected to things bigger than just your company. So that just kind of came up as you were sharing a lot of that. So I wanted to just quickly share that with you as well.
Thank you, Damon. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Look at you, Damon. So good. Okay, I have added our everything we talked about, both for Emma's example and Angie for your example here. These 2 little meeting makeovers are in the deck for you all. I took as best of notes as I could here. These are helpful in the future. Obviously, we just put the little care, share, feel, know agenda in here as well. Okay, Angie shared her takeaways. I would love to just like, if you could put in like a 1 to 2 sentence, what's one thing you're committing to putting learning into action? Like, what's one thing you learned today that you're like, I'm gonna do this? I want to hear from you all in the chat. So please take a minute here. I'll have some music playing for us.
Aha, along the way that easy to implement. Kill the zombies.
Kill the zombies. Focus on purpose. Yes. Rethink the purpose.
That helps. Great storytelling.
Clear outcomes. Gather input. Amazing. Okay. Great.
Yep.
Fantastic. Okay, so what's next here? I want to so we have Culture First Global coming up, our global event series. For those of you that maybe aren't aware of this, come and join us for our big pinnacle event series that happens every year, Culture Ramp. The next one, we just completed our one in APAC. All the recordings are live and on our website if you would like to view those. The Culture First Global for the Americas is coming up on October 26th. So go ahead and register for that. We've got some amazing people lined up to be speaking, and then our friends in EMEA will be early next year. We're gonna have another podcast listeners club here, and I'm gonna take a little poll real quick, launching this. We have 3 minutes left. Which podcast episode would you be interested in discussing next as a community? So we have Simon Sinek's episode on leadership. We have Rachel Botsman's episode on trust, Molly West Duffy on emotions at work. Damon, you can give a much better description of these as people are voting, but
I know I don't want to have recency bias here, but Molly West Duffy is one part of Liz and Molly. If you are familiar with that Instagram account or those incredible graphics about our emotions at work, her book is over there called Big Feelings. It's just come out. So I'll be excited to dive back into that one. Rachel Botsman is one of the world's leading experts on trust at Oxford University, keynote speaker from last year, an incredible episode on rethinking trust in the workplace. And then, the godfather of all thought leadership in the people and culture space, Simon Sinek. It's been a hot minute since that one's come out, so might be a chance to revisit his thoughts on leadership. And also, within that episode, there is actually the CEO of WD-40, who's recently just announced his retirement, Gary, who's an Australian CEO based in the US, and WD-40 is that little blue can that everyone knows, but it has an incredible culture. So I feel like that needs to be nearly ripped out as its own episode.
so good. All right, ending the poll here. Thank you all for participating.
Next one.
Yes, the next one, I'm taking a photo of it. The next one will be on November 17th or November 18th if you're our friends in APAC. If you would, how else you can get involved, you are welcome to join our Culture First or our People Geek Slack community or a local chapter.
Were you sliding? Were you sharing this?
No, I wasn't, but it's in the deck for anyone that wants to look at it. I want to be courteous of everyone's time and actually be a good facilitator and end on time. So with that, we have 1 minute left. If you all could put one word before you press enter, one word in the chat to describe how you're doing right now. Don't press enter, but one word to describe how you're doing right now. All right, everyone get your word. And I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1, and then we're going to enter. So 3, 2, 1, enter. Let's see. Chat bomb, inspired, engaged, peaceful. Inspired came over me a few times. Amazing, grateful, excited. So good. All right. Gonna get us out here. We are something I really like to do. So what do teams do? They have huddles, and when they're about to go play something, they get together and they're like 1, 2, 3, and then they clap and then they go line up on the line of defense. We're gonna do that. So I would love if everyone would come off mute, and I'm gonna have, where did Angie go? Angie, I'm asking you to count us to 1, 2, 3, and on 3 we're all gonna clap with you and the Zoom meeting's just gonna shut off. Okay, everyone understands what's gonna happen? So everyone off mute, ready to clap. Angie's gonna count us 1, 2, 3. On 3 we're gonna clap. Zoom meeting's gonna end, and we'll see you in the interwebs. All right, ready?
1, 2, 3.